The alien girl believed her story was already over. She had accepted it the same way a dying star accepts the darkness around it. Quietly. Without hope. Without resistance. But the universe had other plans. Because on the exact day she decided her future meant nothing, a human pilot fell from the sky and changed everything. On the forgotten mining world of Virex 9, hope was a rare thing. The planet had once been rich with minerals. Thousands of machines had worked day and night to tear metal from its mountains. Now those machines stood silent. Rusted towers stretched across the desert like the bones of dead giants. Dust storms moved across the valleys every day, painting the sky red. Nothing lived here anymore. Except survivors. Among them walked a young alien girl named Lyra. Her species, the Talari, were once respected across many star systems. They were known for their intelligence and strategic minds. But Lyra no longer belonged to them. Years ago she had done something unforgivable. She had questioned the High Council. In Talari society, questioning authority was not bravery. It was betrayal. The Council erased her name from their records. They destroyed her career, her identity, and her future. Then they exiled her to Virex 9, a world so distant that most ships never bothered to travel there. Since then, Lyra had survived by scavenging the ruins. Every day she searched broken mining stations for useful parts. Old batteries. Rusted circuits. Anything she could trade with smugglers passing through the system. Most travelers avoided her. Some feared the Talari. Others simply did not care. Lyra had learned not to expect kindness from the galaxy. That morning began like every other. The red sun of Virex 9 hung low in the sky as Lyra climbed the remains of an abandoned refinery tower. Wind howled through broken metal pipes as she carefully removed a power converter from a rusted panel. Maybe it would still work. Maybe she could trade it for food. Then the sky roared. Lyra froze. She slowly looked upward. Something bright cut through the atmosphere like a burning comet. A ship. But it was not landing. It was falling. The vessel spun violently as flames tore across its hull. The engines were dead. The ship crashed into the mountains beyond the valley with a thunderous explosion that shook the ground beneath Lyra's feet. Dust clouds rolled across the desert. For several seconds, the entire world went silent. Lyra stared toward the crash site. Ships rarely visited Virex 9. Ships that crashed here almost never had survivors. She hesitated. Curiosity had always been her weakness. Finally, she began running. The wreckage lay between two black stone cliffs. The ship had broken apart during the crash. Metal plates were scattered across the rocks like shattered glass. Smoke drifted from the destroyed engine. Lyra approached carefully. The design of the ship looked unfamiliar. Compact. Angular. Efficient. Then she saw the markings on the hull. Human. Lyra had heard many stories about humans. Different species described them in different ways. Some called them reckless. Others called them unpredictable. But every report agreed on one thing. Humans refused to quit. Even when logic said they should. Lyra carefully moved closer to the cockpit. Inside, something moved. Then she heard a voice. Well, that landing definitely needs improvement. Lyra blinked. The cockpit door forced itself open with a loud metallic groan. A human crawled out of the wreckage, coughing and dragging one leg behind him. Beside him floated a small spherical drone. I told you the stabilizers were failing, the drone said calmly. The human groaned. You also said the landing system was fine. I said probably fine. The human looked up. Then he saw Lyra. Both of them froze. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, the human slowly raised one hand. Hi. Lyra tilted her head. You are not afraid. The human frowned slightly. Should I be? Lyra studied him carefully. Most beings reacted with fear or suspicion when they saw her species. This human simply looked curious. Even friendly. The human leaned against the broken hull and wiped dust from his face. Captain Daniel Ward, he said with a tired grin. Professional pilot. Occasional idiot. Lyra crossed her arms. You crashed. Daniel nodded. Yes. That falls under the idiot category. For the first time in years, Lyra almost smiled. Over the next few hours, Lyra helped Daniel gather supplies from the wreckage. His injuries were painful but not fatal. While they worked, Daniel talked constantly. Humans, Lyra realized, enjoyed talking about everything. Bad space food. Strange planets. Ridiculous mistakes he had made while flying. Eventually Lyra asked the question that mattered. Why were you traveling here? Daniel paused. His expression became serious. I was delivering something important. What? A warning. Lyra frowned. About what? Daniel looked toward the distant stars. About a war that's about to start. Lyra felt a strange chill. Wars happen often. Daniel slowly shook his head. Not like this one. He pointed upward. There's a species out there planning to conquer half the galaxy. Lyra stared at him. Then your warning is important. Very. He looked back at his destroyed ship. Too bad my ride is broken. For a moment, silence returned. Then Lyra spoke. I can repair ships. Daniel blinked. You can. Lyra nodded. I survived here alone for 5 years. Daniel stared at her. Then a slow smile appeared on his face. You know, he said, this might be the luckiest crash landing of my life. Lyra looked confused. This is lucky. Daniel laughed softly. Oh, absolutely. He looked at her. Because now we have a chance. Lyra did not fully understand what he meant. But something deep inside her felt different. For the first time since her exile, her future did not feel completely empty. And somewhere far beyond the stars, a war was already moving toward them. The galaxy just didn't know yet that 2 unlikely survivors on a forgotten planet were about to change everything. The drone appeared in the sky just as the red sun began to fall behind the mountains. Lyra noticed it first. Her sharp eyes caught the thin black shape moving silently through the dusty clouds above the valley. It moved slowly, scanning the ground with pale blue beams that swept across the wreckage of Daniel's ship. Lyra's heart tightened. That is not a scavenger drone, she said quietly. Daniel followed her gaze. What kind is it? Lyra's voice became cold. Talari military scout. Daniel blinked. Your people. They stopped being my people a long time ago. The drone hovered higher, circling like a patient predator. It moved with smooth precision, scanning the area again and again. Lyra already understood the problem. If the drone confirmed her identity, the Talari Council would send a retrieval team. And Talari retrieval teams did not come to rescue exiles. They came to erase mistakes. Daniel studied the drone for a moment, then looked back at Lyra. Tell me the worst-case scenario. Lyra answered without hesitation. If it confirms I am alive, they will send soldiers. Daniel nodded slowly. And me. You will be eliminated first. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. Well, that's rude. Despite the danger, his calm attitude almost made Lyra laugh. The drone lowered slightly, scanning the crash site more carefully now. It had noticed something. Daniel whispered, Can we hide? Lyra shook her head. Not for long. Daniel checked the pistol hanging at his side. Then we stop it before it reports. Lyra looked at him carefully. You are very quick to fight. Daniel shrugged. I'm human. That answer seemed to explain everything. They moved quickly through the broken mining ruins, using rusted machinery and collapsed towers as cover. The drone drifted closer. Its scanning beam moved across the wreckage of Daniel's ship, then across the ground, then slowly toward the 2 figures hiding behind an old cargo container. Lyra studied the terrain. Years of survival on this dead planet had sharpened her instincts. Her mind searched the area for anything useful. Then she saw it. An old magnetic crane tower, half buried in dust. but the power rails were still connected to a mining battery grid. Lyra grabbed Daniel's arm. "Do you trust me?" Daniel didn't even hesitate. "Absolutely." Lyra pointed toward the crane tower. "If we overload the magnetic rails, we can create an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disable the drone." Daniel looked impressed. "That sounds dangerously clever." Lyra had already started moving. They ran toward the tower as the drone slowly descended closer to the crash site. Inside the broken control booth, wires hung from shattered panels like vines. Lyra began reconnecting circuits quickly. Daniel watched in amazement. "You really do know how to fix things." Lyra worked silently, connecting damaged relays and forcing power into the ancient system. "This machine once moved ships," she said. "It can still generate a magnetic surge." Daniel glanced nervously toward the sky. "How long until the drone spots us?" Lyra answered calmly. "Very soon." Daniel smiled. "Perfect." Moments later, the drone moved lower again, scanning the wreckage of Daniel's ship. The machine had detected something unusual. Its sensors began searching wider. Then the beam swept across the crane tower. Lyra slammed the final switch. The old machine roared to life. Energy surged through the buried rails with a deep metallic hum that echoed across the valley. Daniel grabbed the metal railing. "Oh wow, that is a lot of power." Lyra pressed the final control. "Now." A massive electromagnetic pulse exploded from the tower. The air crackled with blue lightning. Above them, the Talari drone froze mid-air. Its sensors flickered violently. The machine attempted to stabilize itself. Then its engines failed. The drone dropped from the sky like a stone. It crashed into the valley floor with a loud metallic impact. Silence followed. Daniel stared at the smoking wreck. "Well, that worked better than expected." Lyra allowed herself a small breath of relief. But it didn't last long. She walked toward the destroyed drone and examined its cracked sensor core. The damage was severe, but not complete. Lyra's expression darkened. It transmitted something. Daniel's smile faded. "What kind of something?" "A signal burst." Daniel sighed. "So they know you're here?" "Yes." "How long until they arrive?" Lyra calculated quickly. A Talari patrol ship could reach this system within 2 days. Daniel nodded slowly. "And the warning I was carrying?" Lyra looked toward the stars. "If your message does not reach the core systems, the invasion will begin before anyone is ready." Daniel leaned against a rock and laughed softly. "So let me summarize our situation." Lyra waited. "My ship is wrecked. Your government wants you dead. Alien conquerors are about to invade the galaxy, and we have 2 days to stop it." Lyra considered his words. "Yes." Daniel grinned. "You know what the best part is?" Lyra raised an eyebrow. "What?" Daniel pointed toward the wreckage of his ship. "We only need one working engine to launch." Lyra looked back toward the damaged vessel. The left engine was destroyed. But the right engine might still function. Daniel continued. "And we don't even need to travel far." Lyra slowly understood his idea. The relay satellite. Daniel nodded. "There's an old communication relay in orbit around this planet. If we reach it, we can broadcast the warning across multiple star systems." Lyra felt something unfamiliar rising inside her. Hope. Daniel stretched his arms. "Good news is we still have time." Lyra looked toward the horizon. Dark shapes of distant storm clouds moved across the desert. "No," she said quietly. Daniel followed her gaze. "What?" Lyra pointed toward the sky. A bright flash appeared far above the atmosphere. Daniel's expression slowly changed. "That," Lyra finished the sentence, "is not a storm." The flash expanded into a long silver streak. A ship entering orbit. Daniel sighed. "Well." Lyra spoke calmly. The Talari patrol has arrived. Daniel cracked his knuckles. Then we better fix that engine fast. Because now the race had begun. 2 survivors. 1 broken ship. An entire galaxy that didn't know it needed saving. And above them, a Talari warship had already begun scanning the planet. The Talari patrol ship hung in orbit like a silent judge. From the ground, it looked like a thin silver blade cutting across the dark sky. Its scanners moved across the surface of Virex 9 in slow, methodical waves. Lyra stood beside Daniel's damaged ship and watched the light move across the clouds. "They are searching for me," she said. Daniel tightened a bolt on the engine housing. "Well, that makes sense." Lyra looked at him. "You should be afraid." Daniel leaned back from the engine and wiped grease from his hands. "I am afraid." Lyra waited. Daniel smiled. "But humans learned something important a long time ago." "What?" "Fear doesn't mean you stop moving." Lyra didn't answer, but she understood the meaning. Above them, the Talari ship released several smaller drones that began descending toward the planet. They were faster than the first scout. More dangerous. Lyra looked back at the engine. "How long?" Daniel studied the power core. 30 minutes. Lyra calculated quickly. "The drones will reach this valley in 20. Daniel nodded. "Then we have 10 minutes of extra panic." Despite everything, Lyra felt a small laugh escape her throat. She had never met anyone like this human. Even with enemies in orbit and machines hunting them, he refused to surrender to fear. Instead, he turned fear into momentum. Daniel climbed into the engine compartment and reconnected a cluster of wires. The damaged engine flickered once. Then again. Finally, the turbine slowly began to spin. Lyra stared. "You repaired it." Daniel shook his head. "Not repaired." The engine coughed loudly and sparks flew from the side panel. "I convinced it not to die for a few minutes." Lyra nodded. "That is enough." Daniel jumped down from the hull. "All right. Step 1 complete." Lyra looked at him. "There are more steps." Daniel pointed toward the sky. "Oh yeah." The Talari drones were already descending through the atmosphere. 5 black shapes cutting through the clouds. Daniel looked back at the wreckage around them. "Lyra, how much power can that magnetic crane generate?" Lyra immediately understood his question. "Enough to disable small ships." Daniel's grin slowly returned. "Perfect." Lyra crossed her arms. "You want to attack them?" Daniel shook his head. "No." He pointed toward the sky again. "I want them to chase us." Lyra blinked. "That is not logical." Daniel shrugged. "It's human." Minutes later, the repaired engine roared to life. The ship lifted slowly from the broken valley floor, shaking violently as it fought against damaged stabilizers. Lyra sat in the co-pilot seat, watching the controls carefully. "You are certain this vessel can reach orbit?" Daniel stared at the engine monitor. "I am 70% confident." "That number is low." Daniel smiled. "Welcome to human engineering." The ship accelerated upward. Behind them, the Talari drones immediately detected the launch. 3 of them turned and began pursuit. Exactly as Daniel hoped. Lyra watched the radar display. "They are faster." Daniel nodded. "Good." Lyra looked confused. "You want them close?" "Very close." The ship climbed through the red clouds of Virex 9 as the drones closed the distance behind them. Daniel angled the ship toward the orbital communication relay, a small satellite floating silently above the planet. Lyra understood the goal. "If we reach the relay, we can broadcast the warning." Daniel nodded. "But first." He pointed toward the radar. The 3 drones were nearly within weapons range. Lyra realized his plan. "You want them to fire." Daniel smiled. "Exactly." The first drone launched a plasma burst. Daniel rolled the ship hard to the side. The blast missed them and continued upward. straight toward the communication satellite. Lyra suddenly understood. The plasma strike triggered the satellite's emergency defense protocol. Massive antenna arrays unfolded instantly. Energy shields activated, and the satellite automatically broadcast a distress signal across multiple star systems. Daniel laughed. There we go. Lyra stared at the console. The warning. Daniel nodded. Already transmitting. The satellite repeated the message across hundreds of communication channels. Human colonies. Alien governments. Military networks. Every system within range received the same urgent signal. A galactic invasion was coming. Lyra slowly leaned back in her seat. They will believe it. Daniel grinned. Oh, they'll definitely believe it. Behind them, the Talari drones suddenly stopped firing. Their mission had already failed. The signal had spread. Daniel guided the damaged ship toward the relay station docking port. Moments later, they landed roughly against the small platform. The engine finally died with a tired metallic sigh. Silence filled the cockpit. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, Lyra looked toward Daniel. You changed the future of multiple civilizations today. Daniel stretched his arms. Yeah, but honestly, the real credit goes to you. Lyra tilted her head. To me. Daniel nodded. You saw the invasion pattern. He pointed toward the stars. You were the one smart enough to figure out what was happening. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Her people had once called her a traitor, an exile, a mistake. Yet this strange human pilot had trusted her without hesitation. Daniel looked out the window toward the distant Talari patrol ship. They are leaving. Lyra followed his gaze. The patrol ship slowly turned away from the planet. Without secrecy, their mission no longer mattered. Daniel sighed with relief. Well, that worked out better than expected. Lyra looked back toward the stars. For the first time in many years, she felt something new. Possibility. Her future was no longer empty. Because one reckless human had crash-landed on a forgotten planet, and reminded her that destiny could still change. Daniel stood up and stretched. So, what do you think? Lyra looked at him. About what? Daniel smiled. Saving the galaxy again tomorrow. Lyra allowed herself a real smile this time. For the first time since her exile, she was not alone anymore. And somewhere across the galaxy, fleets were already preparing for the war that had been revealed. Because humanity had just delivered a message to the stars. A message that many alien empires would soon understand. Humans might be reckless. They might be unpredictable. But when the universe faces impossible odds, humans never stop fighting. And sometimes, all it takes to change the fate of the galaxy is one stubborn human pilot and one alien girl who refused to stop believing.
Usando las orejitas.
No.
Capaz que el precio está por debajo de lo que piden en internet.
Posiblemente. Es que no creo que tengan guardables aquí, güey. O sea, no me importa cuál, güey, pero con que sea un guardable, es lo mismo. Güey, tengo que ir con los elfos y regresarme para acá, güey. Mira una perrona. Sí, güey. De condado. No. Pero el pedo es que, o sea, tampoco está calificada la tarjeta, güey. Y pues están cobrando muy caro por la tarjeta, la verdad, güey, se pasan de verga. Ay, era un gusano. Mira el perrito, güey. Está bien bonito. ¿Sí lo viste?